My name is Margaret Windsor. This is my son, Mark and Scott, and we're heir to the British crown, the legal heirs. This is my father, King Edward VIII, and he was legally wed to my mom, a sister to Georgia, the artist Georgia O'Keeffe. That's the O'Keeffe genealogy sheet. My uncle, George, Elizabeth's father, became the illegal monarch, and that is Roosevelt. That is Roosevelt's mother. This is Elizabeth's mother and George's wife, and this is President Roosevelt in 1939 when they were planning my kidnapping. Of course, this is Elizabeth, who's illegal. And I'm going to come down here because this is the double that married Wallace Warfield Simpson. He doesn't even look like my father. He's an imposter. Became the Duke and Duchess of Windsor and took out the real king. Now, they did all this. And I'll tell you who was part of it. This is Obama with Caroline Kennedy. And this is JFK's her father that was killed in Dallas. And the reason they won't tell about it, it would lead back to my kidnapping. Their JFK's father and Caroline's grandfather, Joe Kennedy, was ambassador to Great Britain when they took out my father. 1936 to 46 when they kicked him out. Had a lot of trouble. Anyway, I'll try to finish this with it. The abdication was, as far as my information was, that my mother, of course, was a commoner, and she was Catholic, Irish American. So that didn't go over too well with some members of the Windsor family. It's my understanding that the British, it was quite all right with them. I would never have known about my real identity or any of it if the British hadn't told me. So my father stepped back, and he totally meant to come back and assume his duties. He turned over the interim government to his brother George, who became George the Sixth, and never intended to give it back. That he was the one that the movie, The King's Speech, which made him out to be a hero. And then Madonna did the movie that followed it, The Duke and Duchess of Windsor. You heard not one ounce of truth in any of it. It made killers actually out to be heroes. It made a good man, my father. He was married to my mom. So it's really a switch in history that needs to be corrected. So the crown was stolen by his own brother, like Cain and Abel, okay? There was a 99-year seal put on my father's illegal abdication. The attachment said if my father had a heir, the heir would not be disinherited. I was born in 39, kidnapped in 41. Okay, you've got, wanted to make that clear, you've got my Uncle George the Sixth, you've got President Roosevelt, and you've got Joseph Kennedy, who was ambassador, that were in on my kidnapping. Also, members of what we now call the New World Order. They were really Freemasons, I believe, they were called back then, in which Elizabeth has been photographed with meetings of the New World Order. And my aunt, well, she's a relative, the same relation as with Elizabeth, of the Netherlands. She was filmed there too, and so has Charles been. This is the global government that's taking place. Back to the 99-year seal took care of my father's, the lies and takedown of a monarch by the United States and his own members of his own family, his brother. The United States installed their own monarch. That was in their best interest. Treaties that have been signed are illegal. He's not the legal monarch. Elizabeth's not legal, so the treaties are all illegal. The treaties that allowed bases, U.S. bases on all British soil, actually made hostages out of Great Britain, and the British have had to fight a war for the United States. The United States is their allies, and they have a special relationship. Well, they kidnapped me and took out my father. They kidnapped the Queen. Is that a special relationship? The other thing I wanted to point out is when they placed their military bases all over British soil, there's nothing British anymore. There's an Area 51 in Australia, and I mean, it's ridiculous if you get into the Marshall Islands and all of it that goes on. But the other thing is they really held the Norwegian countries hostage, and they used them as a launching pad to go out. Look at all the monarchs that are monarchs, well, heads of state. You've got all of them that have been suddenly, they're the bad guys, Saddam Hussein, all of it. Now they've gone in to Syria, chemical, for saying they're using chemicals, and of course the United States is supposed to be for human rights and all this. Well, I have been through everything in the book, chemicals, psychological warfare, and so have my children. I hope the world has to see it. Now, maybe I'm redundant here. But I wanted to say that the pictures of today, I had uploaded one video similar to this. And I was telling about Andrew Young, who was with Martin Luther King. When he was shot, Andrew Young was made ambassador to the UN by Jimmy Carter. And Andrew Young helped get a lot of industry and private funds into South Africa, which was a takeover of South Africa from Great Britain, from the Ian Smith to Nelson Mandela. So Martin Luther King, Mrs. King, Andrew Young, all these people that are civil rights advocates knew of my kidnapping and what had happened to me, and so did Jimmy Carter. So it was kind of funny in a weird sense that today I watch on TV about civil rights in D.C., and I see Caroline Kennedy, the granddaughter of the man Joseph Kennedy that helped kidnap me. She's with Obama, right behind him, standing right behind him. You got Jimmy Carter, and right behind him is Andrew Young. So I'm 74 and a half years old. I'd like people to pay for their crimes, their war crimes. I know that only God could do it, but I'd like at least an attempt to give me my name back and clear my father's name. And I'd like to be, I don't know where my children are, okay? They're heirs to the crown. I don't even know if they're alive. Nobody will touch it. Civil rights, I've had none.